The government shutdown now grounding more than paychecks. Staffing shortages from Newark to Denver. Planes waiting hours just to take off. Plus, President Trump openly talking about invoking the Insurrection Act, what he says he would do, and why it has governors and courts on edge. And should you get the COVID shot this year? The answer? It's your decision. The stories that matter, clear and credible, from across the country to around the world. These are your unbiased updates from Straight Arrow News. Good morning, I'm Craig Negrelli. 1 week into the government shutdown, and Americans are starting to feel it. The Senate failed again on Monday to pass a bill to reopen the government, and now air travel is taking a hit. The FAA says dozens of air traffic facilities are either short-staffed or expecting shortages in the coming days. From Burbank, California to Phoenix to Denver, Burbank saw the worst of it Monday. The entire control tower shut down around 4:15 p.m. Flights still moved, but under procedures used at smaller, untowered airports, with delays reaching more than 2.5 hours. Other facilities around Newark, Jacksonville, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Indianapolis also reported staffing issues. Ground delays were issued at Denver and Newark until controllers could catch up.
In a job that's already stressful, this shutdown has put way more stress on our controllers at a time when they're already working on equipment from the 1960s, 1980s, 1990s. We ask them to do their jobs on equipment that has not been state-of-the-art.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says there's been a slight uptick in sick calls since the shutdown started, adding that FAA employees are already stretched thin. The Senate is expected to try again later this week, its sixth attempt to end the stalemate. Today marks 2 years since Hamas launched its deadly attack on Israel, killing nearly 1,200 people, taking hundreds of hostages, and igniting a war that still shows no end in sight. In Egypt, Israeli and Hamas negotiators are holding indirect talks this week, going over President Trump's plan to finally end the war. The proposal includes a ceasefire, the release of remaining Israeli hostages, and humanitarian aid into war-ravaged Gaza. The talks are expected to last several days. More than 67,000 people have been killed since the fighting began, with famine gripping parts of Gaza and nearly 90% of Palestinians forced from their homes. Meanwhile, pressure is building at the United Nations, with France, the UK, and Canada joining calls for a two-state solution. Israel, in turn, has struck hard at its enemies, pounding Hezbollah in Lebanon, taking out top commanders, and waging a 12-day air campaign against Iran earlier this year. 2 years later, the fighting continues, and the search for peace remains as elusive as ever. President Trump is now threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, saying he'd do it, if necessary, if courts or local officials try to block his deployment of National Guard troops. The comment comes as Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker accused the administration Monday of staging a military-style invasion of Chicago. The state and the city filed a lawsuit Monday to block the federalization of the Illinois Guard.
There is no invasion here. There is no insurrection here. And local and state law enforcement are on the job and managing what they need to. Without my permission and against my vigorous objections, the president has federalized 300 Illinois National Guard military troops and hundreds of National Guard members from Texas. Let me be clear. Donald Trump is using our service members as political props and as pawns in his illegal effort to militarize our nation's cities.
The Department of Homeland Security shot back, calling Pritzker's claims a smorgasbord of lies, and saying he should, quote, get out of his mansion and see Chicago. If J.B. Pritzker actually walked the streets of his own city, he would see domestic terrorists and violent rioters attacking police officers, and the scourge of violent crime as a direct result of his own policies. Later in the Oval Office, Trump described when he would actually invoke the Insurrection Act.
We have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe.
The Insurrection Act of 1807 allows the president to deploy the military for law enforcement purposes under limited circumstances. It was last used during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. A South Carolina judge who recently ruled against the Trump Justice Department is now at the center of a different kind of firestorm after her home burned to the ground over the weekend. The blaze erupted Saturday on Edisto Island, destroying the waterfront home. Authorities say 3 people were hospitalized after jumping from the elevated first floor. You see the smoke billowing right there. Rescuers reached them by kayak because of the marshy terrain. Their identities have not been publicly released. Investigators say they found no evidence the fire was intentionally set and no sign of an explosion, despite rampant online speculation about a possible attack. Wow. The home belongs to Judge Diane Goodstein, who last month temporarily blocked South Carolina from handing over its voter database to the Trump DOJ. That decision was later reversed by the state Supreme Court. The High Court is now asking for privacy, saying, "We respectfully suggest that common decency be followed by all in respecting the privacy of the Goodstein family during this difficult time." Governor Henry McMaster echoed that message, writing that there's no evidence the fire was intentionally set, urging people not to spread unverified information. The cause of the fire remains under investigation this morning. All 3 people injured are being treated at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. And this will have lots of people talking. The CDC is making its most significant shift in vaccine policy since the pandemic, formally endorsing a case-by-case approach to COVID shots. The agency signed off on changes recommended by its Vaccine Advisory Committee, now led by members appointed by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Under the new guidelines, COVID vaccination is no longer a blanket recommendation. Instead, doctors and patients are urged to make individual decisions based on risks and benefits. The CDC also updated guidance for children, saying toddlers should now get a separate chickenpox shot, not the combined MMRV vaccine, which can slightly raise the risk of fever-related seizures. The agency says the goal is to restore trust and informed consent in vaccine policy. But some medical groups are warning the changes could add confusion and fuel to people's hesitancy to get a vaccine. Finally this morning, Halloween is creeping up on us, so consider this your reminder to stock up on candy, of course, before the good stuff is gone. So, what's your favorite? DoorDash actually has the receipts. The app crunched the numbers on last year's orders, and America's Sweet Tooth showed up. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups won the crown again for the 2nd year in a row. The runners-up included Skittles, Snickers, Hershey's Milk Chocolate, and M&M's. A few old-school favorites slid into the top 10, including Nerds, Sour Patch Kids, and Airheads. Now, if you're wondering what's big here in Nebraska, DoorDash says it's actually Laffy Taffy. Now, my favorite, kind of boring. I'm a Reese's guy. But there are a couple aspects to this. Number one, Halloween's a great time to stock up on Reese's. If you've got leftovers after Halloween night, store them right on through Thanksgiving, even to Christmas. Also, if you're in the mood for a snack, pull the peanut butter out, grab a spoon, take a big old chunk of peanut butter or a glob of it, put it right on your Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, and pound it down. Now that's a snack, trust me. Before we head out, here's what we're tracking today. At 9, Attorney General Pam Bondi testifies before the Senate Judiciary Committee as lawmakers conduct their annual oversight of the Justice Department. At 10, House Speaker Mike Johnson is expected to hold a press conference on the government shutdown. Also at 10, the Supreme Court convenes to hear 2 oral arguments, including one on practicing conversion therapy for minors. At 11:30, President Trump welcomes Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to the White House for high-level talks on trade and security. Wake up with the real scoop. Sign up for our newsletter delivered right to your inbox each morning. Go to san.com/newsletters. Those are your unbiased updates for this Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. For all of us here at Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. Have a great day.